to the Money RX for CRNAs podcast, where you go behind the scenes with host Brett Fellows, CFP, as he explores the unique opportunities and challenges facing certified registered nurse anesthetists along the path to financial independence. In each episode, Brett shares expert insights and actionable advice, equipping you with the tools you need to take control of your financial destiny and retire on your terms. And now, here's your host, Brett Fellows.
Welcome to the Money RX for CRNAs podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Brett Fellows, a certified financial planner with over 20 years of experience in guiding CRNAs through the complexities of financial planning, tax strategies, and investment management. For those of you who tuned in before, welcome back. And for anyone who is listening for the first time, this podcast is dedicated to helping certified registered nurse anesthetists achieve financial independence and retire on their own terms. On today's Money RX for CRNAs episode, we're talking about how presidential elections affect the stock market. And as always, thanks for joining us. Our primary audience is CRNAs around the age of 50, often married with children, and typically about 10 years away from retirement. You've worked hard, and now it's time to ensure that your money works hard for you. And if you want to receive weekly updates with recaps of the show, resources that we mention on the show, as well as some exclusive content, you can sign up for our Friday Blitz email. And you can do that at oakcapitaladvisor.com. That way, once a week, you'll get an email with a recap of everything we talked about and some links to the stuff that we mention in the show. And we're also excited to announce that we have a new book coming out. Publishing should be finished by the end of October, called, coincidentally enough, Money RX for CRNAs, Secrets and Strategies to Maximize Wealth and Retirement. If you would like a copy of this book, we would be honored to send you a free copy. All you have to do, we'll put a link in the show notes. And from that link, simply fill in your information and we'll be sure to get you a copy once it's published. And with that out of the way, let's get started on your journey to making work optional on your own terms. So today, I want to talk about something that always seems to stir up a lot of emotions and questions among investors: the presidential election. Every 4 years, the air feels charged with opinions, predictions, and let's be honest, anxiety. And it's understandable. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we naturally worry about how the outcome will affect our lives, our families, and of course, our finances. But here's something you may find comforting. Historically, elections have had very little lasting impact on long-term investment performance. Now, I know it's easy to get caught up in all of the hype. You might feel like your financial future hinges on which party takes the White House or controls Congress. But here's where we need to take a deep breath, because the data paints a very different picture. I've shared some helpful charts in the show notes that show how the stock market has performed across different political administrations. And spoiler alert, the market has grown regardless of who's in charge. I know it's surprising, but over time, it becomes clear that the market performance is less about politics and more about companies doing what they do best, earning profits. And while elections may bring short-term market volatility, and believe me, we've all been there biting our nails watching the news, what truly matters is sticking to your plan. And it's easy to get emotional when things feel out of control. I've seen it time and again. Elections can trigger investors to make hasty decisions, especially when emotions take the driver's seat. And this is particularly common when the candidate you're rooting for doesn't win. And let's face it, I'm sure we've all been in that moment when the election results didn't go the way we hoped. Now, you might be tempted to pull back or move your money or make other decisions driven by anxiety rather than long-term goals. But here's my advice. Don't let the noise cloud your judgment. Stepping back to think about why you started investing in the first place is so important. You're in this to build a future that's financially secure for you and your loved ones. You're investing to protect and grow your wealth, to ensure you have options when it comes to how and when you retire, and to give yourself peace of mind. Bringing politics into that can derail your long-term goals, causing you to make rash decisions that could hurt more than help. Think of it like this. Your portfolio is like a garden. You don't tear up your plants just because the weather looks stormy. Instead, you keep tending to it, knowing that some seasons are going to be rougher than others. The same goes for your investments. The risk of making decisions based on who wins an election can feel tempting, but it's a risk that often doesn't pay off. Remember, it's not about reacting to every piece of news, but staying focused on the bigger picture. One way I like to frame it is this. As professionals, we often feel the pressure to protect and safeguard our families and our finances. We know how important it is to plan for the future, but we can also be susceptible to those fears that rise up when the future seems uncertain. In these moments, I encourage you to lean on the strength of the plan you've already built. Whether it's a 401k, 403b, or IRA, or other investment vehicles, think of these as the foundation you've set to weather any storm. It's also helpful to remind ourselves that we're not alone in feeling this anxiety. I've had countless conversations with other CRNAs who feel in the exact same way, torn between wanting to react to the headlines and knowing they need to stick to their long-term strategy. The beauty of being part of a community, especially as CRNAs, is that we can support one another through these moments of uncertainty. We can share our concerns, but also remind each other to stay grounded in our bigger financial goals. The truth is, uncertainty is always going to be part of the investment landscape, whether it's an election, a market correction, or even personal circumstances that change unexpectedly. And that's why having a comprehensive financial plan is so essential. A plan allows you to take a step back from the headlines and focus on what you can control, rather than what you can't. You worked hard to build your financial foundation, and reacting emotionally to short-term events can undermine the long-term growth you're working towards. So, as we head into this election season, try to keep your eyes on the prize, your financial freedom, your retirement goals, and the future you've envisioned for yourself and your loved ones. Elections come and go, but your commitment to your financial health and your family's security endures. Okay, time for my Anesthesia Anecdotes. This week, I want to talk about something that's been really eye-opening for me recently. Taking control of my time. Now, I know time management is one of those things that we talk about, but really, how many of us truly feel like we've mastered it? Between work, family, and everything else life throws us, it often feels like time is slipping away. Now, for me, time management has always been tricky. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when juggling so many things between my work as a CFP, handling finances, and trying to find moments of rest. I realized I was constantly running on autopilot. So I made a commitment to be more intentional about how I spend my time. Now, one thing that's helped me tremendously is time blocking. This, of course, is where you divide your day into chunks of time dedicated to specific tasks, whether it's work, personal errands, or even self-care. Now, this I know sounds very simple, but it's been a game changer for me. Instead of feeling like my to-do list is endless, I now have focused blocks of time to tackle each task without feeling like I'm constantly multitasking. And you know what? It's made me so much more efficient. Knowing that I have a set time for work, financial planning, and even relaxation gives me permission to fully focus on the one thing at a time. One trick I've been using during my time blocks is setting a timer. And I try to do it in what's called 50-20-50. So I work focused for 50 minutes, I take a 20-minute break, and then I work another 50 minutes. Now that's 2 hours in total with a 20-minute break. Now that break allows me to reset mentally and physically so I'm not burning out halfway through the day. And let's be honest, some days can feel like an endless marathon, especially when you're trying to balance a busy career and still make time for yourself or your family. I also realized that I wasn't carving out enough time for activities that energize me, like reading or exercising. So now I've added a non-negotiable block of time every morning to move my body. For me, it's been taking up running. I'm somewhat new to it, but I've started training for my first 5K in a very long time, and it's been very rewarding. Even on those days when I don't feel like it, I push through because I know that little bit of exercise not only helps me physically, but mentally too. It sets the tone for the rest of the day and gives me the energy to tackle everything else on my plate. Another thing I've embraced is saying no more often. Now, this one was hard for me at first, but I realized that saying yes to everything was stretching me just too thin. So I've started to be much more protective of my time by only committing to things that truly align with my priorities. And trust me, it has been very liberating. I'm learning that it's okay to step back from things that aren't serving me and focusing instead on what really matters. So for anyone out there who feels like time is slipping away or that you're constantly stretched too thin, I encourage you to take a look at how you're spending your days. Whether it's time blocking or setting up a morning routine or just learning to say no, these small changes can make a huge difference. I do believe that taking control of your time means taking control of your life, and I'm excited to keep working on this myself. Thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to check out the show notes for those charts I mentioned. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might need a little extra reassurance as we head into this election season. Until next time, keep your focus on what really matters, your financial independence and the life you're building. Until then, have a great day.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, financial, or other professional services.